The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber sparkled under the light of 3 suns. Inside, 2,000 representatives from across the galaxy sat in rising tiers. They whispered among themselves as Ambassador John Carter of Earth walked to the central speaking platform. Carter looked tired. His eyes showed the strain of 3 days of non-stop negotiations. His blue diplomatic uniform was slightly wrinkled. He had not slept well. The Council had, once again, denied Earth's petition for full membership. Representatives of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice calm and measured. For 57 years, humanity has been a provisional member of this body. For 57 years, we have met every requirement you set before us. We have shared our unique technologies. We have opened our borders. We have contributed to defense fleets. We have even changed our own laws to match Council standards. The Valaxian representative, Ambassador Ziktar, made a dismissive gesture with his 4 arms. His scaled skin reflected the light as he leaned toward his aide and said something that made several nearby aliens laugh. Carter continued, "Today, after we have fulfilled the final requirement by establishing peaceful relations with the Dreth Collective, we were certain our petition would be accepted." He paused, looking around the chamber. "Instead, you have moved the goal once more. Now you claim our economic output is insufficient. This despite the fact that human agricultural products feed nearly 1/3 of the Outer Rim worlds. This despite the fact that human medicines have cured diseases on 12 of your worlds." High Chancellor Dravnor, a tall, thin alien with pale blue skin, rose from his seat. "Ambassador Carter, the Council has made its decision. Perhaps in another decade." "There will not be another decade," Carter said quietly. The chamber went silent. This was not the script. Petitioner species were supposed to accept rejection gracefully, then try again later. Humanity has tried diplomacy. We have tried patience. We have tried good faith. For almost 6 decades, we have been treated as second-class citizens in galactic affairs. Our colonies suffer from pirate attacks, while Council defense fleets patrol the homeworlds of full members. Our scientific breakthroughs are heavily taxed before we can use them ourselves. Our people must pass through extra security at every spaceport. Carter straightened his shoulders. As of this moment, humanity officially withdraws from the Galactic Council and all its associated bodies. We will no longer seek your approval or acceptance. Shocked murmurs spread through the chamber. No species had ever withdrawn. It simply wasn't done. Ziktar laughed loudly. "And where will you go, human? Your species needs our trade routes, our technology, our protection. This emotional display is why primitive species should not." "We are not going anywhere," Carter interrupted. "You are the ones who will feel our absence. Effective immediately, all human trade with Council worlds is suspended. All human diplomats are being recalled. All human scientists are withdrawing from joint projects." Chancellor Dravenor's face showed worry for the first time. "Ambassador, this is most irregular. Perhaps we can discuss." "The time for discussion ended today," Carter said. "You had 57 years of chances." He stepped down from the platform and walked toward the exit. The chamber erupted in voices, some angry, some concerned, most dismissive. As Carter reached the great doors, his communication device vibrated. He looked down at the message. "Operation Independence is now active." He allowed himself a small smile as he stepped through the doors and out of Council space forever. Behind him, the Council members continued their debate, not realizing that everything had just changed. On Earth, President Samantha Rivera watched the broadcast. When Carter delivered his final line, she nodded to General Paul Martinez. "Send the signal," she said. "It's time for humanity to walk its own path." Across Council space, thousands of human ships began to power up their engines. Businesses closed their doors. Research stations downloaded their data and wiped their systems. The exodus had begun. The galaxy would never be the same. Fleet Admiral Susan Miller stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Guardian and watched the displays. Hundreds of small dots moved across the screens. Each dot was a ship. Each ship carried humans leaving Council space. "Status report," she said. "Withdrawal is proceeding on schedule, Admiral," said Officer Kevin Black. 83% of human citizens have already departed from Council worlds. All diplomatic staff have been evacuated. Trade ships are returning to human space. Susan nodded. She had expected resistance, perhaps even violence. But the Council races seemed more confused than angry. They simply could not believe humans were serious about leaving. "What about the science teams on Altair Prime?" she asked. "Dr. Alan Wright and his team were the last to leave," Kevin replied. "They deleted all research data before departure. The Alterans tried to stop them, but our security teams got everyone out safely." In his laboratory at the Galactic Science Academy, Dr. Wright looked around one last time. For 12 years, he had worked here, studying alien diseases and creating cures. His team had saved millions of lives across the galaxy. "Are you sure about this?" asked Dr. Lyran, his Alteran colleague. The alien's 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of distress. "Your work is too important to abandon." Alan sighed. "I don't want to leave, Lyran. But orders are orders. Humanity is going its own way now." He pressed his palm against the computer terminal. His personal code activated the deletion program. Years of research vanished in seconds. "The Council never respected us," Alan said. "They used our discoveries but treated us like children." He picked up his small bag of personal items. "I'm sorry." As he walked out, Lyran called after him. "What about the Tauran plague cure? We were so close." Alan didn't look back. The formula for the cure was already safely stored in his implanted memory chip. Humanity would complete it alone. On the Council homeworld, High Chancellor Dravnor called an emergency meeting. Only half the usual representatives attended. Many were busy dealing with sudden problems as humans disappeared from their worlds. "This human tantrum will end soon," said Ambassador Ziktar with a dismissive wave. "They are emotional creatures. They will come back when they realize they need us." But Ambassador Krell of the Andorian systems looked worried. "The humans have been quietly establishing independent supply chains for years. My analysts believe this withdrawal was planned long ago." "Impossible," Ziktar laughed. "Humans cannot plan ahead. They are too primitive." Chancellor Dravnor wasn't so sure. Reports were coming in from across Council space. Human-owned businesses had closed overnight. Human sectors in alien cities stood empty. Ships vanished from ports without filing departure plans. Most concerning were the military reports. The Earth Defense Fleet had completely disappeared from their usual patrol routes. Where did their ships go? Dravnor asked his military advisor. "Unknown, Chancellor. They've gone silent. No transponder signals." In deep space, Captain Laura Bennett guided her patrol ship along the border between Council space and the unclaimed territories. Her orders were clear. Record everything. Engage with no one. Through her viewports, she watched a steady stream of human ships crossing into the unclaimed regions. Colony ships, mining vessels, research stations, all heading away from Council influence. Her communications officer called out, "Captain, we're detecting Council scan ships approaching." "Maintain course," Laura ordered. "Let them see us. Let them wonder." On Earth, President Rivera met with her cabinet. The massive operation was proceeding faster than expected. "Phase 1 is nearly complete," said Defense Secretary Jack Wilson. "All citizens who wish to leave Council space have been evacuated. Phase 2 can begin in 3 days. And Project New Dawn?" the President asked. "The first sites are already under construction," Jack replied. "The Council has no idea what we're building out there." Rivera nodded. 57 years they made us wait. Now they can wait and see what humanity does on its own. Outside her window, the lights of Earth shone brightly. Soon, those lights would shine on new worlds, far from Council control. 3 months after humanity's withdrawal, The first real problems began to appear across Council space. On the agricultural world of Veros Prime, food shipments failed to arrive. The planet's governor, Tralvex, received bad news from his supply minister. "The human farms on our outer moons are empty," the minister said. All equipment was removed. All crops were harvested early. "Find replacement suppliers," Tral ordered. "We have tried. Food prices have increased by 400%. 6 other systems relied on human agriculture too." Similar reports came from across the galaxy. Medical centers discovered their supplies of 12 critical medicines were running out. These medicines had been produced only by human pharmaceutical companies. The replacements from other species were less effective and much more expensive. In the Galactic Trade Center, merchants argued loudly. Many had built their businesses around human goods. Now those goods were gone. "My customers demand human coffee," shouted a Drillian shop owner. "They will accept no substitute." The council finally decided action was needed. They prepared a delegation to visit Earth. The mission was simple: offer slightly better terms and bring the humans back into the fold. Ambassador Krell, who had warned about underestimating humans, was chosen to lead the group. His ship approached Earth's solar system cautiously. "Scan results, Captain," Krell asked. The captain looked confused. "Earth's orbital stations appear to be abandoned, Ambassador. Defense platforms are inactive but still impenetrable. Communication arrays are silent." Krell frowned. "Take us closer to Earth itself." The ship moved toward the blue planet. Earth looked peaceful from space. Cities still glowed on the night side. Farms still covered the continents, but something was different. "Energy readings are down 60% from our last scan," the science officer reported. "Population readings are. That can't be right." "What is it?" Krell demanded. "Human population appears to be reduced by nearly half. 2 billion life signs instead of the expected 4 billion. Krell stared at the view screen. "They're leaving Earth. Where could they go in such numbers?" The delegation tried for 3 days to establish contact. No one answered their calls. When they attempted to send a shuttle to the surface, automated defense systems activated just enough to turn them away without firing a shot. The message was clear: humans did not wish to talk. Krell returned to the council with empty hands. Meanwhile, on the edge of council space, Captain Laura Bennett continued her observation mission. Her ship hid behind a small moon, watching a steady stream of massive colony vessels move into the unclaimed regions. "Another group of ships coming through," her first officer said. "Those are heavy equipment haulers, terraforming machinery, by the look of them." Laura studied the readings. "Where are they going?" "There's nothing out there but dead worlds and empty space." Her scanner operator spoke up. "Captain, I've been tracking their courses. All ships are heading to the same 12 destination points. All are systems the Council classified as worthless." Laura thought about this. "Pull up the survey data on those systems." The data appeared on her screen. The systems had been surveyed briefly by Council scouts centuries ago. They contained planets with hostile atmospheres, extreme temperatures, or high gravity. All had been deemed unsuitable for colonization. "What do these planets have in common?" she asked. Her science officer studied the data. "Rich mineral deposits, unique elements, and all have water, even if it's frozen or underground." Laura smiled slowly. The Council thought these worlds were worthless because they're hard to live on. But humans have always adapted to difficult environments. On her command screen, a message appeared from Earth Command. "Begin Phase 3. Operation New Home is now active." Laura watched as more ships moved past her position, carrying thousands of colonists toward those worthless worlds. The humans weren't just leaving. They were building something new. Back in Council space, the first businesses began to close. The economic tremors were turning into quakes. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal, Council Intelligence Officer Xantal stood before the emergency session. The tall, thin alien looked nervous as he activated the display screen. "Honored representatives," he began, I bring disturbing news. Humans are not simply hiding in their home systems. They are systematically dismantling their frontier colonies. Images appeared on the screen. Empty human settlements, abandoned mining stations, ghost towns where busy colonies had once stood. This settlement on Proxima Beta housed 12,000 humans, Santal said, pointing to an empty cluster of buildings. They left over a 3-day period last month. They took everything of value: equipment, vehicles, even personal items. Chancellor Dravenor leaned forward. Where did they go? Unknown, Chancellor. Our border patrols lose track of their ships once they enter the unclaimed regions. Ambassador Ziktar made a dismissive gesture. Let them hide in the empty sectors. They will come crawling back when they run out of supplies. Engineer Peter Wilson was one of the few humans who had chosen to remain in Council space. His services were too valuable for the Alterans to lose. Now he stood in an abandoned human research facility on Altair Prime, surrounded by angry alien officials. There must be something left, demanded the Alteran science director. Data banks, research notes, equipment blueprints, anything. Peter ran his hand over an empty desk. They took everything important. Standard evacuation protocol. He didn't tell them about the small device hidden in his pocket. A quantum storage unit containing copies of all human research. His job was to stay behind and report on Council reactions. So far, those reactions had moved from dismissal to confusion to the beginnings of panic. The computer systems, asked an Alteran engineer. Wiped clean, Peter replied. Even the backup systems. The science director's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in distress. What about the defense systems? The Earth Defense Fleet had ships stationed throughout Council space. Peter smiled slightly. All gone. Every military asset has been withdrawn. That was the most concerning part for the Council races. The human fleet had been small compared to the major powers, but surprisingly effective. Now it had vanished completely from Council scan networks. Far beyond Council space, in a system centered around a red dwarf star, General Nicol Freeman watched as massive construction projects took shape. Shipyards larger than anything humans had built before stretched across the space between 2 small moons. Progress report, she requested. Her aide, Lieutenant Steve Rogers, checked his tablet. Construction is 17% ahead of schedule, General. The first new vessels will be ready for testing in 6 months. Nicol nodded with satisfaction. And the defense grid? Fully operational. Our stealth systems are working perfectly. Council scan probes have passed through this system twice without detecting us. Nicol looked out at the shipyards. The Council had always restricted human military expansion, claiming it was for galactic security. Now, free from those restrictions, humanity was building the fleet it had always wanted. What about Project Quantum Leap? She asked. Steve lowered his voice. Dr. Kim reports a breakthrough. The new drive system works. It's twice as fast as the best Council ships. For the first time in a year, Nicol smiled. So we can go anywhere in Council space without them catching us. Yes, General. We could reach any Council world before they even knew we were coming. Nicol turned away from the viewport. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. We didn't leave to start a war. We left to build our own future. On a nearby asteroid, thousands of human engineers were constructing something even more important than ships, something the Council had forbidden for centuries. The sign on the massive facility read simply, Artificial Intelligence Research Center. Back in Council space, 6 major companies announced bankruptcy on the same day. The economic tremors were getting stronger. Soon, everyone would feel the quake. 2 years after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council faced its worst crisis in centuries. The Grand Chamber, once a place of order and procedure, had become a scene of chaos. Representatives shouted over each other as the latest economic reports scrolled across the main screen. 6 major financial institutions have declared insolvency, announced the financial minister, a short, round alien with gray skin. The galactic credit has lost 40% of its value in a single day. Chancellor Dravenor tried to restore order by banging his ceremonial staff against the floor. Few representatives paid attention. How could humans cause this much damage by leaving? Demanded a Krathvar representative. They were just one minor species. Ambassador Krull stood up. They were not minor. We just treated them that way. Humans managed 70% of shipping in the Outer Rim sectors. Their banks processed 30% of all council transactions. Their entertainment networks generated billions in revenue. The chamber grew quieter as Krull continued. We relied on them far more than we admitted. Now they are gone, and we see the holes they left behind. On the luxury resort world of Palisade Prime, hotel owner Jax Morvan stood in his empty lobby. The last guest had checked out 3 days ago. No new bookings had come in for weeks. What happened to all the human tourists? He asked his staff manager. Humans made up 80% of our visitors, the manager replied. Without them, we cannot stay open. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. The luxury goods market crashed when human artisanal products, valued for their uniqueness, became unavailable. Tourism planets that had catered to human visitors faced bankruptcy. In the council chamber, the arguments grew heated. Ambassador Ziktar of the Valaxians stood to speak. This is temporary, he insisted. The humans cannot survive on their own. They will return and beg for raid mission. Ambassador Teller of the Alteran systems rose in anger. You drove them away. Your constant dismissal of their achievements, your blocking of their petitions, you cost us our most productive member species out of petty prejudice. For the first time in 500 years, the council session dissolved into shouting. Several representatives nearly came to blows. In his small apartment on Altair Prime, Engineer Peter Wilson watched the broadcast and smiled. He sent a coded message back to Earth. Phase 4 complete. Council unity broken. On Earth, President Samantha Rivera read the reports from across former council space. The economic damage was severe, just as their analysts had predicted. Not because humans had tried to harm the council, but because the council had never realized how deeply humanity had integrated into the galactic economy. Is it time for Phase 5? Asked her chief advisor. Rivera looked at the latest images from the new colonies. Massive cities rising on once hostile worlds. Orbital stations constructed around inhospitable planets, rich with rare minerals. The new human fleet taking shape in hidden shipyards. Not yet, she decided. Let them feel our absence a while longer. In the remote Arcturus system, Dr. Linda Gomes watched as her research team activated the quantum communication array. This technology had been strictly controlled by the Council, with limited licenses granted to member species. Now free from restrictions, humans had built something far more advanced. The array hummed to life, its energy readings off the scale. Test signal ready, announced a technician. Linda nodded. Send the message. The system pulsed. Light flowed through crystalline structures. Then came the response. Instantaneous communication across 20 light years. No delay. No signal degradation. It works, Linda exclaimed. True real-time communication across interstellar distances. With this breakthrough, human worlds could coordinate without delay, no matter how far apart they were spread. The technology the Council had feared was now a reality. Back in Council space, the Galactic Bank announced emergency measures, currency controls, trade restrictions, rationing of key resources. Too late, the Council realized just how much they had depended on the species they had always considered too young, too emotional, and too unpredictable to be equals. 3 years after humanity's withdrawal, a small trading vessel drifted through the Cygnus border checkpoint. The ship's captain, a Drillian named Zev, looked nervously at the Council patrol craft scanning his vessel. Anything to declare? Asked the board patrol officer. Just basic trade goods, Zev replied. Some spices, textiles, nothing special. The officer nodded and waved him through. Zev sighed with relief. The patrol hadn't detected the real reason for his journey. 3 days later, Zev stood before a secret session of the Council Security Committee. His recording played on the main screen. I saw it near the Delta Void. Zev's voice narrated as the video showed a massive ship unlike anything the Council had ever seen. Its hull gleamed with a strange, shifting material that seemed to bend light around it. No visible engines, yet it moved with incredible speed. It passed within 2 kilometers of my vessel. Zev continued. My scanners couldn't lock onto it. The readings made no sense. Chancellor Dravenor leaned forward. Are you certain it was human? Zev nodded. A small section of the hull cleared for a moment. I saw their symbol, Earth with a star rising behind it. The Security Committee fell silent. This was the 5th such report in the past month. Independent traders describing encounters with strange, advanced ships, all bearing human markings. At the prestigious Galactic University, Professor Jarn Kiv presented his findings to a worried board of directors. The data is clear, the old alien said, pointing to graphs on his display. Scientific progress in key fields has essentially stopped. The university president blinked her 6 eyes in dismay. Surely we can continue without human assistance. Jarn shook his head. You fail to understand their role. Humans were not just participants in research. They were the connectors. They linked different scientific traditions, found unexpected patterns, asked questions we would never think to ask. He showed more graphs. Quantum communications research is down 93%. Artificial gravity manipulation has seen no advances in 3 years. Faster-than-light travel efficiency improvements have stalled completely. Engineer Daniel Evans sat in an expensive restaurant on Altair Prime. As one of the few humans who had chosen to remain in council space, he was now treated with unusual respect. Across from him sat 3 council representatives, including Ambassador Krell. Mr. Evans, Krell said softly, we need your help. The council is prepared to offer you extraordinary privileges, an estate on any world of your choosing, unlimited research funding, diplomatic status. Daniel sipped his drink. In exchange for information, replied another representative. What is humanity building out there? Our long-range scans detect unusual energy signatures from systems we previously considered worthless. Activity that shouldn't be possible with known technology. Daniel smiled sadly. I don't know. You must have some idea, Krell pressed. You were a senior engineer. You don't understand, Daniel said. They didn't trust you, so they didn't trust us who stayed either. I'm as much in the dark as you are. This was not entirely true. Daniel had received one cryptic message 6 months ago. It contained only 3 words. It's working perfectly. In the hidden human colony on Terra Nova, scientist Carl Jackson watched the test results with amazement. The small device on the laboratory table, no bigger than his palm, contained more computing power than all of Altair Prime's mainframes combined. The quantum processor works, he told his team. True artificial intelligence is now possible. This was the technology the Council had forbidden for millennia, claiming it was too dangerous. Humanity had secretly researched it anyway. And now, free from Council restrictions, they had achieved a breakthrough. How long until full implementation? Asked his assistant. Carl checked the figures. 6 months for the network to learn enough to be useful. Another year to reach its full potential. On her flagship, General Nickel Freeman received the report with satisfaction. Operation New Horizon was succeeding beyond all projections. The technologies humans had developed in just 3 years of freedom surpassed everything the Council had achieved in centuries. Soon, she told her officers, we'll be ready for Phase 6. 5 years after humanity's withdrawal, a strange calm had settled over Council space. The economic crisis had forced cooperation. New trade routes had been established. Alternative sources for goods and services once provided by humans had been found, though at higher costs and lower quality. The Council had begun to believe they had weathered the storm. They were wrong. On a quiet morning, alarms sounded across the Council homeworld. Council Defense Command detected an unknown vessel approaching at tremendous speed. Where did it come from? Demanded the defense minister. It just appeared at the edge of our system, replied the scan officer. It crossed 2 light years in minutes, not weeks. The council chamber filled quickly as representatives rushed to their seats. Chancellor Dravnor called for order. What do we know about this vessel? He asked. The defense minister looked grim. It's human in design. Our weapons cannot target it. Its whole composition is completely unscannable. It's transmitting a diplomatic signal. A wave of whispers swept through the chamber. After 5 years of silence, humanity had returned. The ship stopped at a respectful distance from the council homeworld. Its sleek shape and strange, shifting hull material caused wonder among council scientists. No visible engines, yet it had traveled faster than any known ship. They are requesting permission to send a diplomatic shuttle, announced the communications officer. Chancellor Dravnor hesitated only briefly. Grant permission. Prepare the diplomatic landing bay. The human shuttle was small and elegant. When its door opened, a single figure emerged, a woman in a simple gray uniform with the new human emblem. Earth with a rising star. I am Ambassador Rebecca Collins, she announced to the waiting council delegation. I represent the human cooperative. In the Grand Council chamber, Rebecca stood on the central platform. Every seat was filled. Even species that rarely attended council sessions had sent representatives. The human cooperative thanks the council for granting this audience, Rebecca began. Her voice was calm and measured. I come not to request readmission, but to establish formal relations between our peoples. Chancellor Dravnor leaned forward. We have many questions, Ambassador. Where have your people gone? What is this human cooperative? Rebecca smiled slightly. The human cooperative comprises 327 star systems, most previously considered uninhabitable or worthless by council standards. We have adapted to these environments and made them our home. A shocked murmur ran through the chamber. The council had only colonized 600 systems in its entire history. For humanity to claim over 300 in just 5 years seemed impossible. That cannot be true, said Ambassador Ziktar. Such rapid expansion is beyond any species' capability. It would be, Rebecca agreed, with council technology. But we have developed our own. She activated a small device. A hologram appeared, showing massive city domes on hostile worlds, orbital platforms circling gas giants, mining operations extracting rare elements from asteroid fields. We have also established trade agreements with 17 non-council species, Rebecca continued, and formed a mutual defense pact with the Andorran Empire. This news caused the greatest stir. The Andorrans had isolated themselves from council contact for millennia. They were known to be highly advanced but deeply private. What does the human cooperative want from the council? Asked Chancellor Dravnor. We offer limited trade renewal under terms favorable to humanity, Rebecca replied. No political integration, no military alliance, simple economic cooperation between independent powers. The council chamber fell silent. Humanity was no longer asking for admission. They were offering conditional partnership as equals, perhaps even as superiors. And if we refuse? Asked Ziktar. Rebecca's expression remained neutral. Then we continue on our separate paths. The human cooperative is self-sufficient. We do not need council markets, though we recognize the mutual benefits of trade. She paused, letting her next words carry weight. The question, Chancellor, is whether the council can afford to refuse. On the screens around the chamber, economic projections appeared. They showed clear benefits to council worlds from renewed human trade, and continued decline without it. The council representatives looked at each other. For the first time in its history, the council was not in a position of power. The choice was theirs, but the leverage belonged to humanity. 10 years after humanity walked away, the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The grand signing ceremony took place on neutral ground. a beautiful garden world at the borders between Council space and human cooperative territory. Admiral Frank Morris, now with gray in his hair, stood on the bridge of the HSS Defiance and watched the proceedings on the main screen. Representatives from both powers gathered under a massive crystal dome. Chancellor Dravenor, now in his final term, represented the Council. President William Chen represented the human cooperative. The Earth Accords, announced the moderator, will establish formal recognition of human independence and protocols for peaceful coexistence between our civilizations. Frank remembered the early days of the withdrawal, the uncertainty, the risk, the difficult years of building a new future beyond Council reach. It had been worth it. His executive officer, Commander Sarah Lee, stood beside him. "Hard to believe it's been 10 years, she said. 10 years since they told us we weren't good enough to sit at their table," Frank replied. "Now they're eager to sign treaties with us." On the screen, the document was placed before both leaders. The Earth Accords would open new trade routes, establish diplomatic relations, and most importantly, formally recognize the human cooperative as a sovereign power equal to the Council. The Council, once the unchallenged authority in known space, now controlled barely half its former territory. The human cooperative had emerged as a technological and economic powerhouse, with borders open to any species willing to abide by their principles of sovereignty and fair exchange. As President Chen signed the document, Frank thought about how much had changed. Humans now controlled more territory than any 3 Council races combined. Their technology had leaped forward by centuries once freed from Council restrictions. The artificial intelligence networks humans had developed managed resources with perfect efficiency. The quantum drive systems allowed human ships to cross vast distances in days instead of weeks. Yet it hadn't been about power or technology. It had been about respect. Was it worth it? Sarah asked, echoing his thoughts. All the hardship of the early years, building everything from scratch. Frank looked at the display showing hundreds of thriving human worlds and their new allies, colony domes gleaming on once hostile planets, orbital cities circling gas giants, research stations exploring frontiers the Council had never dreamed of. "We didn't want to leave," he said. "We just wanted to be treated as equals. Sometimes you have to walk away to find your true path." On the planet below, the ceremony concluded. For the first time in history, the Council had signed a treaty with a power it could not bully or control. A new age of true cooperation might be possible, but only because humanity had proven its strength. Small ships were now permitted to travel between the territories. Trade could resume. Cultural exchanges could begin. But there would be no return to the old ways. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as junior members of the Council, but as architects of a new order. In schools across human cooperative space, children learned the history of the Great Withdrawal, how their parents and grandparents had taken an enormous risk for freedom and dignity, how they had built a new society on worlds the Council had deemed worthless. One such classroom on Terra Nova was visited by Ambassador John Carter, now elderly but still sharp. A young student raised her hand. "Sir, did you know your speech would change history?" she asked. Carter smiled. "I only knew we deserved better than what we were being offered." As the Defiance prepared to return to human space, Frank gave the order to engage the quantum drive. The ship slipped away, faster than any Council vessel could follow. The Council had learned too late that humans weren't seeking a place at their table. They had been building a better table all along. And now, the galaxy had to adapt to a new reality, one where humans walked their own path and offered their hand in friendship only to those who offered respect in return.